This book has been out for a few years now, and it's really good, all the secrets of how to live cheaply and healthily and happily. And this one's got vastly more still. It's got a DVD that you just wouldn't believe how much. I call it Dr. Pat's Awesome Library. So grab it while you can. Just phone me up sometime. Hi, this is episode 2 of 12, and this is of both my awesome folks in both world wars. My father, Captain Harry Howden, was a hero of the Australian cruiser HMAS Hobart. Captain Harry's admirers persist way beyond his final sea command, June 1942, just after Coral Sea Battle, now slated to be a nature reserve. 45 country charmed life battles, liberations, amphibious landings, invasions or visits exceed any ship that we can work out. I recall some years ago seeing a box labelled HMS Hobart containing only 3 skimpy press cuttings in the vast Australian War Memorial Library beneath its museum. Another box was stuffed with items about sunken labelled HMAS Perth. Curiously, Australia ignores cost effectiveness, preferring failure glorification like Gallipoli that Churchill intended to protect Russians with, sunk ships, downed planes, missing platoons, nursed POWs. I'm disgusted when journalists claim Australian character was built on Gallipoli. What a dead loss, and it's not even our flag. Now, World War I, Harry, my father, asked his ocean liner Scott captain father's Cape Horn sail ship permission to Scotland, later as Scapa Flow Royal Reserve midshipman on minesweeper, later battleship HMS Benbow, the British one. Thence 10th Cruiser North Sea Squadron before transferring to 1916 Royal Australian Navy, eventually more ships than any other captain. Howden becomes Australian sub-lieutenant. Early 1918 he boards HMS Sydney with 2nd Cruiser Squadron before 1919 Australian promoted lieutenant. 23rd birthday he first commands HMAS Protector, having its quoted guns like cruisers into Flinders Naval Depot Melbourne, their first warship. With commander ill, Howden becomes Flinders executive officer. Then, commanding Aussie destroyers HMAS Howden and HMAS Tasmania, aged 25 years, and after 1924 English courses in clothes and name among 1927 Japanese, he passes interpreter and customs exams as Tokyo British Secret Service agent, plus China Civil War activity. Next was the new HMAS Australia from England on her first commission after gaining half a stripe. China again to command the British HMS Mantis Yangtze River gunboat. That's from 1930 to 1932 on the China station, rescuing missionaries, protecting British interests and encountering Japanese warships refueling in China. He was promoted to commander and awarded OBE for brave years of resourcefulness. He married Mum Londoner von der Fisk on board for security, which is Royal Navy unprecedented for the wife to be on the same ship. 1932, after more ships from England, he fetched the veteran Vampire. On Sydney arrival, Howden boarded flagship Canberra before commanding British Admiralty Intelligence Section covering Nazi assortment, Baltic States, India, Burma and Assam. Strong mum, inches taller than Pa, swearing she had damaged Hitler with a heavy umbrella if she had only known, translates secret Nazi warship documents at sinister midnight Balkan Park spy meetings, barely escaping Europe via storm-tossed North Sea Nazi plane containing suspicious Japanese officials. Then a Norwegian United Kingdom freighter before taking a reportedly sunk ship to Melbourne. Despite top brass unpopularity tolerating ingenious cowboy success, my father, Captain Howden, becomes 1938 captain. Year-end he returned Australia, commanding sloop Yarra, closely observing Hitler harangues for years, and same age as Hitler, Harry desperately warns Australia and world governments of World War II imminence. Also, from his research, the vital necessity for aircraft to protect vulnerable battleships, often to no avail. Near World War II, he was captain of HMS Hobart that was swapped for amphibious biplane ship HMAS Albatross plus cash. Hobart and I were both conceived in 1934. She was ex-HMS British Apollo visiting Vancouver, West Indies, etc. Coincidentally, I researched NASA's space namesake Apollo. World War II was declared with Hobart abroad. As 1940 Supreme Naval Officer Red Sea, that's SNORS, Father commands British Somalia Hobart headquarters at Berbera when General Wavell orders 38,000 British troops evacuated, including their silverware. Exhausted Camel Corpsman of 650 members receives the VC. Impertinent delaying tricks to Italians includes 3 Hobart heroes mounted popgun echoes scaring the hell out of them, and their wire canvas walrus amphibian biplanes hand-aimed bombs blast Italian infrastructure to the promised land. I briefly knew one of them in 1980s. The Italian response is unrecorded. Hobart finds Singapore to be threatened in days. Why not evacuate all personnel, I have wondered for years. Instead, Dad liberates our Chinese armour and Austin tourer car, including 100 gallons of petrol. He then commands Java Battle Western Striking Force. Hobart, speedlight, gleefully misses 600 targeted Jap bombs before departing Sumatra's Padang, February 1942, taking 1,000 civilians and sending destroyers for many more, then home again escorting Australian and Middle East troopships. Midshipman Take It Easy refuses to de-hammock, yet most irate when Father had him decked. Midshipman who? Prince Philip, would you believe, who ignored my reminder decades later. HMAS Hobart, the only other Australian ship with HMAS Australia, reaches Coral Sea Battle May the 5th, 1942. Her renowned sharpshooters bagging 3 huge Jap bombers, despite Yanks thinking it was entirely their scene. Brisbane's river was next via Moreton Bay, then Sydney again. With his birthday on America's Independence Day, he despises cowboy US Air Force friendly fire shooting up Hobart, a common occurrence. Forced to fly a Russian flag for some days annoyed him worse still because, like Churchill, he clearly foresaw future USSR brutality. Warts and all, Dad proved an excessive non-father and brother, womanizer, drinker, smoker, floppy dresser, bad dieter in fats, salt, sugar and spices, yet popular, funny, frugal and ingenious. Our war year homes was bushy Sydney side, waterside to Point Piper, forgotten in brutal stolen generation kids' homes and in brutal boarding schools. Meantime, despite aim for HMAS Australia, Hobart under Captain Showers, later Lucas Heights Nuclear Facility liaison with Sydney University, it cops a 10-mile Jap rogue torpedo off Vanuatu, limping home to fight again. After Hobart proudly represents Australia at Tokyo Bay surrender, Mitsui Corporation tows her cheap scrap iron to Japan. 1962, yes, the Japanese finally won. Harry divorced in 1950 at Perth, and in 1966 saw him as my Sydney Harbour crew after I sailed home from Los Angeles via Hawaii. Europe travelled extensively, yes, Moscow, and married another Londoner. He used to hitchhike in liners that were commanded by his ex-officers or in aircraft carriers in the Admiral's quarters. He was as big a scrounger as I was. He had been Royal Australian Navy representative at Westminster Abbey for King George VI's wedding and coronation, was a British commander and spy advising us of coming war. A young Flinders CEO, was King George VI's ADC, and represented Australian War Memorial Villiers-Bretonneux unveiling. In charge of several evacuations. He formed the 1943 Howden Hussars, training superintendent at Flinders Naval Depot near Melbourne, where us kids were schooled in 1944, and Balmoral Naval Commanding Officer HMAS Penguin, briefly Sydney Naval Officer in charge, and he oversaw the embryo HMAS Stirling Island Naval Base for secret Z-Force training off Perth. 5 years commanded Western Australian Navy base at Fremantle Salubrious HMAS Lewin, and I count 17 medals. Curiously, and this is the weird bit, Pa Who's Who in 1969 in Australia isn't British or Australian. He's purebred Kiwi, who don't want to know about him because he wasn't in the New Zealand Navy. Although he didn't, those days you didn't have to tell where you came from apparently. He illegally cons the wartime HMS Hobart to Wellington. And apparently just to visit 1904 family holiday home of 6 doting, unhappily treated sisters living bayside. How he got away with these things, you know, he's just so successful, I think. But that's at Furneaux Lodge, the family home, and an Unchained Endeavour Inlet rustic resort, which was Captain Cook's main Pacific base. My proven Viking stock parents in 2 world wars could probably explain plenty. Now virtually 80, I'm almost the last person standing who walked HMAS Hobart's deck. Although as a World War II kids party Dad arranged for us junior school kids just before the Jap submarine shot at us. She was mothership to midget ships attacking Sydney Harbour. I recall after one captured midget sub now in Canberra War Museum was hauled on land below Sydney Harbour Bridge, and how us kids paid 2 shillings to barely squeeze into it. I was always very small, but those Japanese crew must have been microscopic. I'd just like to show just a sample here of things necessary to make us probably the most self-sufficient house in Australia. Like this fork here, it invented years ago, and it enables you not to ruin your back and spine hurting or anything like that. This 11 kilo bike, it's about as tiny as ever. I've taken it to Crete and Glasgow lectures around the world several times. Can't do without, put it in a bag, put it on buses. You can't take bikes on buses now, unless it's in a bag and folding. This pump, homemade pump, about 22 years ago, it used to run from that solar panel, which is about 4 times bigger than it need be to run the pump. Windscreen wiper motor on the end, and this is just a hose reel that dips in and out of the water. So that used to drip feed all around the garden and new food trees and so on, of which all this is food trees, a 1/4 acre. And this pipe, half floating pipe, is for helping the kookaburras and ducks and things who can't take off in the short distance of the dam, and frogs get out of the dam easily. HMS Hobart model making and camouflage sketch. HMS Hobart recognition silhouette. These are official US Navy photos. 43. Hobart, 7,000 tons, 32.5 knots, 8 6-inch guns and 8 4-inch anti-aircraft guns and 18 smaller weapons. Going to Sydney, we're not sure. Plane infers Howden commands. Point Cook Air Museum has already restored one. Power insisted planes guard ships, often too late. Long-range Seagull amphibious plane atop Hobart catapult from 1939 removed in 1941 as too vulnerable. One cheekily bombed the Italian Red Sea radio station and headquarters in British Somalia. 45. Walrus amphibians taxing Sydney Harbour. There seems to be a race. The rear, number 9, is Hobart's. To some, wartime Hobart against the bridge seemed bigger than Sydney. Walrus the plane still between the funnels. Harry Howden, Captain Hobart, beyond May 1942 Coral Sea battle. From ship's engineer Don Hewson, former opposition's leader's father, we thank for this photo. Rulers like Hodiardas, Yemen Prince, May 1940, gave crew a gratitude goat for liberating Red Sea's areas from Italy. Note, Pa sport ceremonial sword that I inherited, as in the next slide. After sailing around exciting New Zealand islands with home shipping friends, teen Harry escaped to sea until Uncle Niblet urged the British Navy him into it and gifted the sword, which I inherited despite family collusion. Note the lion head. Hamilton Museum in New Zealand contains a similar, fairly low value Navy sword. They were valuable depending on who owned them. This is an interesting essay. It's called Operation Downfall, and full of secrets and highly classified material that I've managed to get hold of. It's a little bit more easy to get hold of it now though. Few 1945 Americans, much less Australians even now, can access top secret plans buried decades in United States National Archives as yellowed pages revealing Operation Downfall enormity. The American invasion of Japan. 3 strikes were planned: Operation Olympic, November 45, followed by Operation Coronet, and another in 1946. The first invasion after the vast US and 2 air and 2 naval bombardments, plus 14 amphibious divisions against heavily defended Kyushu. Second invasion following March 22nd, coast divisions seeking surrender against 1 million Japanese defenders. Some British fleet and Royal Australian Navy like Hobart would have helped. Beaches named a bit like Normandy, like in France, after cars, funnily enough. 2,645 aircraft would be beach support from 66 aircraft carriers. A total of 4.5 million, including 4 US Air Forces and 1.5 million soldiers and millions of support, or 40% of 1945 people still in uniform. An admiral estimated 250,000 Kyushu casualties, and a general estimated 1 million by 1946. The Japs secretly saving 1945 planes, fuel and pilots were building 1,131 more planes, 100 in underground aircraft plants and hangars, 20 suicide airstrips, poisonous gas, 35 camouflaged airfields and 9 seaplane bombers against the US fleet. They had hidden 12,725 planes. Every village made aircraft in mines, rail tunnels, under viaducts, even shop basements in Japan. Beach defence sported 3 suicide diver lines, plus magnetic, electronic, and other kinds of mines. Beach mountain cave tunnels connected headquarters and hospitals. A bomb-proof and steel doors protected 1,000 troops. From the slogan, "Millions die for the Emperor," 28 million Japanese formed the volunteer combat forces to fight worst bloodbath, say intelligence. Fortunately, A-bombs nullified the position. US-Australian cruiser exercise force without Harry steams to Subic Bay, Philippines, August 1945. It includes Hobart and either Australia or Shropshire, a US Navy New Orleans class heavy cruiser and 2 USN Brooklyn class light cruisers. HMS Hobart exercised with US and Australian cruisers off Luzon, Philippines, 1945. Ship beyond is either Australia or Shropshire. HMS Hobart seen from US Currituck AV-7 departing Australia after 1947 visit. Note her whaleboat. Fox hunt ready. Captain Harry manages Western Australian Navy among 1950 Perth Home Navy staff. Stuff at inland naval stores awaits a bigger museum. From WD and H.O. Wills, etc. They early advised Harry to invest in oil and uranium, and he died worth millions. I rescued Dad's 1958 Aussie passport showing Calcutta, Thailand, London, Australia, Port Said, Moscow and France. That's up there, still at the Iron Curtain Cold War. 1951 showed Spain in the passport. Me in Istanbul was trekking overland when he died in '69 at St Bart's Hospital, London. Same age Hitler, he despised Americans July the 4th on his birthday. Pa holding last Sydney reunion harangue on stripped the Hobart before May 1962 tow to Japan as scrap. So the Japs had won after all. Is this New Hobart in Perth, or is it Perth in Hobart and crash? HMAS Hobart's door painted and photo on war display at Redland Council Art Gallery nearby, Cleveland Museum owned. Were artefacts commandeered before the Japanese scrap sale of HMS Hobart? We're not quite sure about that. Largest 20-inch signal lamp, HMS Hobart, 1938 to 47, plus one of two Hobart's 3 pulley blocks to manually haul the anchor if the capstan fails, at Garden Island Maritime Museum. You've got to get there, see all this. Mounted gun is in Hobart City. See Hobart Association there. Dad retired right before 1969 demise at HMAS Cutterbull, Garden Island, Sydney, and with Captain I don't know who. We sailed Pittwater near Sydney, me as captain in 1965, just after my arrival from USA via Hawaii in my sailing boat. See naval museums on various harbour islands. They're pricelessly valuable. Chapel plaques at Flinders Naval Depot, HMAS Cerberus, etc. See the nearby museum. We war visited several shore stations he commanded, plus HMS Hobarts for kids' parties. Maybe I'm the last standing Hobart witness who's still around, or still mobile, I should say. As a kid I was there only. 2 HMS Hobarts at RSL and Yacht Club reunion, and a dinner for 200 at October 2009. Roy Jones, radar, the only cruiser guy there. I had a microbike. Botanic Gardens, in 100 years at Bundaberg, 102 years of steam, Bert Hinkler, twin propeller amphibian, a push-pull engine which must have been very fast. Military Museum, I contributed NASA and Hobart research. The crewmen ashes were scattered that day. The girl cadets fire old cannon at muster, march and memorial service in Anzac Park in Bundaberg. My $5,000 1964 schooner Bonnie beat charters Los Angeles to Catalina Island before escape via Hawaii, Fiji, Port Vila and a swap for the cutter Mahina. We arrived home 1965 using sail self-steer and paying crew. I sold it for $900 to a world cruise fanatical teenager. Original tour advertisement, 1964, Moreton Bay Whale Tour cabins, nothing to do with Hobart. This lights, markers and the radar had gone. So it was a tramp steamer again in Vanuatu that I commanded in 1968. The mystery tough American Australian PNG New Guinea war record MV Havana. Cannibals and gales were reported on our trip around the islands at midnight. No ticket, I hadn't got a ticket. I simply was okay as a Pacific charterer. 30 of September 2010, current Navy chiefs encouraging a reply when I asked any new Australian ship to have the latest HMAS Redland City name, X near Cleveland City. So I might have been pulling rank here a bit. 15 orders, decorations, medals and badges Captain Howden can wear, and several more. We truly appreciate you all lasting the distance. Welcome to check us out anytime. And sincerely from myself and from our crew, for free help and ideas, come and phone us on 340-95-100, and for project inspiration. I'd welcome research help too. And these TV series that I've been laboriously making, they're mostly concentrating on self-reliance and a high degree of simple, healthy and inexpensive life support systems. If you want to know an enormous amount more, here's this text on the left here, which is very good for reading in bed and trains, and here's a DVD which has got all the stuff on these slides and all the possible secrets of being self-reliant. For next week, I'd like to you to join us once again, only a different subject entirely. We'll enjoy the presentation, it's number 3 of 12, called Spaced Out. This is my awesome Australian contribution to aerospace research, and all on vitally zero budget. You should be astounded by that.